You think everything's calm now. The chaos has passed, the love feels stable, and you finally believe she's yours. But then, something changes. Her tone, her energy, the way she looks at you. Suddenly the warmth that once drew you in starts to fade, replaced by silence, tension, distance. You try to fix it, but nothing works. And that's when confusion sets in, because you didn't do anything wrong. But what if I told you this isn't random? Every woman, no matter how gentle, loyal, or loving, eventually does this to her man. Not out of malice, not even consciously, but because deep inside, she needs to know. She needs to know if the man standing in front of her is still the one she fell for, or if comfort has made him soft. So she tests, not with words, but with energy. She'll pull back, go cold, question your strength, not to hurt you, but to feel you, because every woman does this to her man, not to destroy him, but to reveal the kind of man he really is. If you want to master these dynamics, understand her subconscious, and become the man she cannot resist, make sure to comment, share, and subscribe to Attraction Matrix, your source for decoding attraction at the deepest level. At the beginning, she becomes everything he unconsciously desires, not by pretending, but by reflecting. Every gesture, every tone, every subtle shift in energy, she matches it like a flawless mirror. He thinks it's connection. He thinks it's chemistry. But it's far more strategic than that. Because what most men never realize is that the mirror phase isn't about love. It's data collection. She studies how he talks about his past, the way his eyes react when she teases him, the slight change in his breathing when she goes silent. She absorbs it all, not to manipulate, but to understand who she's dealing with beneath the charm, beneath the mask men wear to impress. She doesn't ask for his vulnerability outright. She earns it through resonance. If he's confident, she amplifies that confidence. If he's gentle, she softens even more. If he's withdrawn, she becomes the one who reaches first. He feels seen, deeply, unusually seen. That's the trap. Because what he's really seeing is himself, reflected back through her perception. It's an illusion of intimacy, the kind that binds faster than love ever could. In this phase, he drops his guard. He starts sharing stories he doesn't tell anyone else. He starts using phrases she used earlier without realizing it. Their emotional rhythms sync. And that's when the attachment begins, not through attraction, but through recognition. He's addicted to that feeling of being understood without explanation. Because the modern man doesn't crave love. He craves peace from the noise inside his head. And she gives it to him perfectly, like an echo of his better self. But here's the truth. She'll never say out loud. This version of her isn't permanent. It's an entry point, a doorway into his psyche. Because before she can love a man, she needs to see what he hides when he thinks he's safe. The mirror phase ends the moment she's collected enough emotional fingerprints to know exactly where his ego ends and his essence begins. That's when she shifts, subtly, almost invisibly. Her responses stop mirroring. Her rhythm becomes unpredictable. He feels it instantly, but he can't explain why. The laughs don't land the same way. The conversations feel slightly off-tempo. That familiar ease starts to fade. And this is where most men make their first mistake. They start chasing the reflection. They think something's wrong with her, when in reality, she's just stopped reflecting him. She's moved past imitation into revelation. The version of her that once validated his identity now starts testing it. That's the cruel beauty of the mirror phase. It's not about showing him love. It's about revealing who he becomes when love stops echoing back. And for the first time, he's faced with an uncomfortable truth. He wasn't in love with her. He was in love with the reflection she built out of him. Once she understands his rhythm, she disrupts it. It doesn't happen out of spite. it happens out of instinct. Because once a woman senses a man's emotional pattern, she knows exactly how to break it. At first, everything feels effortless. The texts come fast, the laughter flows, the energy feels alive. He's addicted to the consistency, the comfort of her presence. But that's the danger. Consistency breeds assumption, and assumption kills polarity. So, without warning, she changes. The replies slow down. Her voice sounds distant. Her touch lingers a second less. And suddenly, he feels something he hasn't felt in a while. Uncertainty. That's the emotional hook. Because what truly binds a man to a woman isn't her affection. It's her absence. It's the space she creates between who she was and who she's becoming. And that space becomes a void he can't stop trying to fill. He starts replaying old conversations, analyzing every message, searching for meaning in the silence. But silence is the meaning. It's the tension she's engineered to pull him closer without saying a word. This is the invisible line between desire and dependence. He's no longer drawn to her because of what she gives, but because of what she withholds. That's the secret power few men ever recognize. A woman's true influence isn't in what she offers, it's in what she removes. He begins to crave her validation the way an addict craves relief. Not love, not connection. Relief. Relief from the anxiety that her absence creates. And that's how the dynamic flips. The one who was calm becomes restless, and the one who once chased now controls the tempo. This shift reveals everything about a man's emotional strength. Some men collapse. They chase harder, overtext, overthink, beg for reassurance. Others hold steady, grounded, unshaken, understanding that her pullback is not rejection, it's measurement. Because, see, when she pulls away, she's not leaving. She's watching. She's observing how he handles tension, silence, uncertainty. Does he lose composure, or does he remain centered in it? That's what women feel more than anything. Emotional stability. Not charm, not bravado, not words, but stillness. When she senses that stillness, something inside her relaxes, because she realizes she's dealing with a man who doesn't chase energy. He commands it. And in that moment, the polarity returns stronger than before. But if he fails, if he breaks under the pressure, she won't hate him. She'll just lose the spark that made her want to submit in the first place. That's the brutal paradox. She hooked him to test his strength, and depending on how he reacts, she'll either fall deeper or detach completely. Every emotional connection begins with closeness, but the true test begins the moment she steps back to see how much of his peace was ever truly his. Every woman, no matter how sweet or soft she seems, will eventually test a man's boundaries. Not out of cruelty, but out of instinct. Because boundaries tell her what kind of man she's really dealing with. At first, it starts subtly, a small disagreement, a delayed reply, a request that crosses a line, just slightly. She watches how he reacts, not the words he uses, but the energy he projects. Does he hold his ground calmly, or does he bend to avoid conflict? Does he speak with certainty, or does he explain himself like a man seeking permission? See, the test of boundaries isn't about control, it's about containment. She needs to feel the edges of his strength. Because no matter how independent she is, every woman subconsciously searches for the man who won't lose himself in her emotions. So she pushes. She disagrees with things she used to accept. She gets colder when he's warm. She withholds when he gives. Every move is a quiet experiment. Can he remain unshaken when I challenge his balance? The average man sees this as conflict. He takes it personally. He argues, defends, negotiates, anything to prove his worth. But the moment he does, the polarity collapses. Because when he starts explaining, he's no longer leading. The strong man doesn't react. He listens, observes, and when he speaks, his tone carries authority without aggression. He doesn't need to dominate. His composure is dominance. This is the paradox women live with. They'll test the man they love most, not because they doubt him, but because they need to confirm that his strength isn't conditional, that he won't crumble the moment she stops being easy to love. And here's the hidden truth. When she tests him, she's not trying to push him away. She's trying to find out if she can trust him deeper. Because trust isn't built in harmony. It's built in friction. The man who keeps his center during her storm becomes the anchor she didn't know she was searching for. He doesn't need to shout to be heard. He doesn't need to argue to prove he's right. He simply exists in calm certainty, and that calm rewires her instinct. She softens. Her energy changes. The resistance fades. Because she's finally felt what most women crave but rarely find, a man whose boundaries aren't walls but structure. That's the quiet truth of masculine power. It's not about control, it's about containment. A woman doesn't need a man who dominates her emotions. She needs a man who won't drown in them. And every test she gives, every argument, every pushback, every shift, is her way of asking one silent question. Can I lose myself around you, without you losing yourself in me? That's the moment she stops fighting you, and starts trusting you. Every man remembers the first time she went silent after something he said. No argument, no explanation, just that quiet, distant energy, the kind that feels like rejection without words. That's not an accident, because once she knows his rhythm and tests his boundaries, the next phase begins: disapproval. It's not about scolding or criticism. It's deeper than that. It's the quiet withdrawal of feminine approval, the invisible current that fuels a man's confidence more than he'll ever admit. At first, it's small. He tells a joke. She doesn't laugh. He shares a plan. She questions it. He makes a move. She hesitates. And suddenly, he feels it. That subtle sting of something's off. See, a woman's disapproval is one of the most powerful psychological forces a man will ever face. Because it doesn't just challenge his ego, it exposes his need for validation. Every man wants to believe he's independent, unaffected. But when the woman he desires withdraws her warmth, his nervous system goes into chaos. He starts chasing reassurance, explaining, proving, apologizing for things he didn't even do wrong. He wants to fix the feeling. But that's exactly where she sees the truth. Does he act from conviction or from her reaction? This is where many men fail. Because they confuse approval with connection. They think her silence means punishment, when in reality, it's a mirror. She's showing him where he's emotionally dependent, where he's still a boy seeking validation instead of a man standing in his truth. The man who understands this doesn't chase her smile back. He doesn't beg for her warmth to return. He stays rooted, steady. Because his sense of worth doesn't live in her approval. It lives in his integrity. And something incredible happens when he does that. She feels it, not in words, but in her body. That calm energy tells her, he doesn't need me to feel strong. He chooses me because he is strong. That's when the polarity shifts again. Her coldness softens. Her silence turns into curiosity. She looks at him differently, because she feels safe again. A woman's disapproval isn't punishment, it's initiation. It's the fire that burns away the weak layers of a man's identity. If he survives it without losing himself, he becomes someone new, not because she changed him, but because she revealed what was never real. Every time she withdraws her approval, she's subconsciously asking, "Do you stand because you believe, or because I clap?" And that's the moment the real dynamic begins. Because when he no longer seeks her validation, her respect finally appears. At some point, it happens. She steps back, not because she stopped caring, but because she needs to see. This is the most subtle, yet most powerful phase of her testing. Withdrawal. The texts slow, calls become shorter, time together feels lighter, less charged. And suddenly, he notices what he never realized before. Her presence isn't guaranteed. The average man panics. He overanalyzes, overchases, overexplains. Every hour she's quiet becomes a crisis in his mind. The more he fears losing her, the more he invests, the more obvious his dependency becomes. But that's exactly the trap. Her withdrawal isn't punishment, it's measurement. It's her subconscious asking, how strong is he when I'm not here? How steady is he when I'm distant? A strong man doesn't flinch. He doesn't interpret her absence as rejection. He doesn't compensate with neediness. Instead, he maintains his life, his habits, his purpose. He uses her absence to reconnect with himself, not to chase her presence. Because emotional dependence is invisible to men until it's exposed by silence, and withdrawal is the magnifying glass. It shows him brutally and clearly whether he's whole with or without her. Some men crumble under this test. They call, text, apologize, promise, anything to bring her closer. They mistake her pullback for rejection when it's actually data. They reveal their fear, their attachment, their need for her approval. Others rise to the challenge. They continue living intentionally, focused on their goals, their friends, their growth. They maintain calm energy, not coldness, balance, not fear. And here's the twist. The stronger he becomes in her absence, the more magnetic he appears when she returns, because women don't fall for men who chase. They fall for men who remain unshaken. The pull of emotional withdrawal is primal. It ignites desire, curiosity, and respect. Withdrawal also exposes the man's emotional self-sufficiency. Can he experience life fully without relying on her validation? Can he stay centered in his identity when she's not giving him energy? The answer she observes will determine whether her attraction deepens or fades. In truth, she's not testing love, she's testing strength. Not strength of muscle, status, or words, but strength of presence, of inner stability, of emotional independence. When a man passes this test, he doesn't just retain her attraction. He becomes a man who doesn't need tests at all. She senses it, even if she doesn't articulate it. And from that point, the relationship enters a new dynamic, one of respect, polarity, and authentic desire. Her withdrawal isn't cruelty, it's evolution. And for the man who understands it, it's the doorway to mastery. Once withdrawal has done its work, the next phase begins. Subtle provocations. These are the invisible jabs, the almost imperceptible pushes designed to test his inner strength. Not loud fights, not dramatic tantrums, just small, deliberate disturbances that provoke a reaction. She might question a decision he made, comment on a minor flaw, or show mild irritation over something trivial. She doesn't need to be overt. Her energy alone is enough. Because her goal isn't conflict. Her goal is information. Every man has a default response to provocation. Some respond with anger. Some respond with over-explanation. Some withdraw and internalize, creating anxiety and silence. All of these responses reveal weakness. She's watching, not consciously, not maliciously, but biologically. Every reaction tells her subconscious whether he's dominant, stable and grounded, or needy, reactive, and pliable. The strong man responds differently. He doesn't explode. He doesn't overanalyze. He observes. He processes. He acts only when action is necessary. He maintains his frame without confrontation, without submission. His calmness communicates far more than words ever could. Provocations also reveal attachment patterns. Does he derive his self-worth from her response? Does he feel shaken if she disagrees? Or does he know his value exists independently of her mood or approval? Here's the truth most men never understand. Provocation is not personal. It's her subconscious testing the boundaries of his strength. Every small irritation, every minor critique, every playful jab is a measure. It's her way of asking, can he remain himself, even when I push him? Those who fail become predictable. They overcompensate, appease, or overreact, confirming to her subconscious that he is weak. Those who pass remain steady, confident, and unshaken. And when a man masters this, attraction transforms. The very provocations that once caused tension now reinforce respect. Her desire increases because she senses he cannot be controlled. This is polarity at its purest. She pushes, he stands. She tests, he remains. And in that rhythm, the magnetic tension between them grows. Provocation is not about manipulation, it's about alignment. The woman unconsciously ensures that the man she stays with is someone who maintains his center, regardless of her energy. It's a biological check on the strength of the connection. The subtle provocations are a lesson in self-mastery. Every reaction either strengthens the man's presence or exposes his vulnerability. Every choice, calm or reactive, feeds her perception of him, and her perception will determine the future of attraction, respect, and intimacy. Once she's tested withdrawal and provocation, the next subtle phase begins, the validation trap. This is where a man's deepest insecurities are quietly exposed, without words, without confrontation. She doesn't demand validation outright. She simply observes how he reacts when her attention is conditional. She might smile less, linger over a message, or show appreciation only occasionally. Every pause, every slight delay, every hesitant glance becomes data. The average man doesn't notice. Or worse, he overreacts. He chases approval, showers her with gifts, texts too often, or over-explains himself. Any action aimed at securing her affirmation. But here's the truth. The moment he needs her validation, he becomes weaker in her eyes. Because her attraction isn't fueled by need, it's fueled by confidence, presence, and self-sufficiency. And a man who looks to her for confirmation is no longer a leader in the relationship. He's a follower. This is the trap most men fall into without realizing it. They confuse her intermittent attention for love. They interpret her selective praise as a reflection of their worth. And they forget that true strength is independent of her responses. The strong man reacts differently. He doesn't seek affirmation. He gives it to himself. Her approval is a bonus, not a necessity. He remains grounded, calm, and self-assured, regardless of whether she laughs at his jokes, compliments his choices, or seems distant. Her conditional energy no longer controls him. Women subconsciously detect this difference immediately. A man who craves validation signals insecurity. A man who is whole, even in her absence or disapproval, signals dominance and stability. The validation trap is also a polarity lever. When a man resists the urge to overcompensate, his emotional steadiness becomes magnetic. She starts craving his energy instead of withholding it. She tests less because she knows he cannot be shaken. Here's the harsh reality most men miss. Every failed validation attempt compounds over time. Each desperate response signals weakness, creating patterns of attachment and dependence. She doesn't just notice, her subconscious remembers. And once that perception is set, attraction diminishes, even if he tries to rebuild later. The key to surviving the validation trap is simple in concept but hard in practice. He must detach emotionally from outcomes without detaching from life itself. He must maintain self-worth independent of her reactions, independent of her energy, independent of her approval. That is true masculine power. Not domination, not arrogance, not coldness, but unshakable presence. And when he achieves that, the trap transforms into opportunity. She stops testing for weakness and starts feeling drawn to the man she can't control, the man who is whole without her. After testing boundaries, withdrawal, provocation, and validation, a deeper phase emerges, the silent pull. This is where her subconscious takes over, and attraction shifts in ways most men never notice. It's quiet, almost imperceptible. A glance that lingers slightly too long, a brush of her hand that feels deliberate, a tone in her voice that carries curiosity instead of judgment. She isn't consciously chasing him, but her subconscious is responding to the strength she has measured. Every man experiences this differently. The weak man, still desperate for approval, interprets these subtle signals as chance for control or reward. He overinterprets, overcommits, or misreads the energy entirely. The pull becomes confusing, triggering neediness instead of calm confidence. The strong man, however, sees it clearly. He doesn't chase. He doesn't overanalyze. He simply observes the shift, acknowledging it without attachment. And that is what amplifies the attraction. Here's the secret. Women are biologically wired to respond to presence over effort. They feel the stability, the calm, the centered energy of a man who is whole without them, and they are drawn to it like gravity. Her silent pull is not about reward. It's about resonance. She is subconsciously aligning with the energy she respects, desires, and feels safe around. Notice the pattern. The more she tests, the more he stands, the more magnetic he becomes. Each withdrawal, each provocation, each subtle disapproval feeds her subconscious data. And that data generates desire, not through words, not through chasing, not through validation, but through presence. The silent pull is the apex of polarity. It's not manipulation. It's the natural outcome of a man maintaining his frame while she tests it. When she subconsciously trusts his strength, attraction becomes inevitable. But the weak man can never trigger this pull. His reactions are reactive, needy, emotional. His presence is shaky, uncertain, and no subtle signal she gives can awaken desire, because her subconscious senses instability and attraction dies before it begins. This is why men who chase, compromise, or bend break the silent pull before it can exist. They mistake connection for control. They misinterpret tests as obstacles instead of data. The strong man, however, understands the invisible law. The less he needs, the more she desires. The more he remains whole, the stronger the pull becomes. The more he is grounded, the more magnetic he appears. This is subconscious desire, the unspoken current beneath every glance, every touch, every silence. It cannot be forced. It cannot be begged for. It can only be earned through strength, presence, and unwavering self-possession. And once he triggers it, the dynamic shifts permanently. She's no longer testing. She's aligning, drawn quietly, powerfully, irresistibly to the man who proved he does not require her to be whole because he already is. After she has tested boundaries, withdrawal, provocation, validation, and triggered the silent pull, the next stage begins, the test of consistency. This is where her subconscious asks the most critical question of all. Is he reliable, or was that strength temporary? It's not flashy, it's not dramatic. It's subtle, ongoing, and relentless. Because a woman doesn't need a moment of confidence. She needs a pattern. Consistency is measured in small ways. How does he handle repeated disagreements? Does he maintain his frame during minor provocations over weeks and months? Does he show the same calm authority whether she's present, distant, upset, or affectionate? Many men fail here. They pass the initial tests, but over time, cracks appear. Stress, fatigue, jealousy, or outside pressure reveal their dependency. A man who looks strong at first may begin bending boundaries, seeking approval, or compromising integrity. Her subconscious notices every fluctuation, cataloging strength versus weakness, like an invisible ledger. The strong man responds differently. Consistency isn't effort, it's identity. He doesn't perform strength, he is strength. His reactions are predictable because they are grounded in principles, not emotions. When she tests him again, whether with a disagreement, withdrawal, or subtle provocation, he remains unwavering, not robotic, not cold, but rooted, calm, and certain. Consistency amplifies desire. It transforms curiosity into trust, respect, and deep attraction. A woman's subconscious needs repeated evidence that the man she's with is unshakable, that his presence isn't a temporary flare of confidence, but a permanent state of being. Here's the truth most men never realize. Inconsistency kills attraction faster than overt weakness. Even minor lapses, bending boundaries once, overreacting to small provocations, chasing validation, signal instincts. Ability. Her subconscious reacts instantly. Desire wanes, respect diminishes, and the silent pull weakens. The strong man understands the invisible law of attraction. Strength is measured over time. Every choice, every interaction, every response must align with his identity, not her reactions. Consistency is the proof she needs, not words, not promises, not effort, but visible, unwavering alignment with his own principles. In short, strength without consistency is a mirage. She may be drawn temporarily, intrigued by flashes of dominance or confidence, but without consistency, attraction will fade, tests will intensify, and connection will unravel. The man who masters consistency doesn't need to chase. He doesn't need to convince. He simply exists in unshakable integrity, and that alone cements respect, desire, and trust in her subconscious. After she has tested boundaries, withdrawal, provocation, validation, triggered the silent pull, and examined consistency, the final phase arrives, the subconscious alignment. This is the moment when her mind, body, and instincts all converge to recognize the man in front of her. It's invisible, yet undeniable. By now, she has gathered countless data points: how he reacts under stress, whether he bends to please her, if he seeks approval, and whether he remains steady when provoked. Her subconscious has cataloged every response, every lapse, every demonstration of strength or weakness. And now it asks the ultimate question. Is he genuinely the man I can trust, desire, and feel safe with, without controlling him? This isn't a conscious question. It doesn't occur in her mind as a thought or plan. It's a primal verification, a deep-seated evolutionary process that measures his worth as a partner, protector, and leader. The man who has maintained frame, resisted the validation trap, handled withdrawal with calm presence, and remained consistent throughout, becomes magnetic without even trying. Her attraction no longer relies on his words, gifts, or attempts to win her affection. It comes from perceived mastery. For the weak man, this stage is where everything collapses. No amount of explanation, apology, or effort can overwrite the image of dependency, inconsistency, or neediness she has already stored. The tests increase, frustration mounts, and eventually she disengages, emotionally or physically. For the strong man, alignment feels effortless. She may test occasionally, but these are minor blips, not crises. Her attention is no longer a reward to chase. It is freely given because her subconscious recognizes strength, self-possession, and integrity. This phase transforms the dynamic. She no longer tests for fear, weakness, or desperation. Instead, her subconscious relaxes, desire flows naturally, respect solidifies, and the relationship operates on mutual acknowledgement of strength. Here's the paradox. The man who passes every previous phase may still not realize he has reached alignment. He may think he is merely navigating conflict, managing mood swings, or handling her behavior. In reality, he has earned a rare position, one where attraction is automatic, respect is inherent, and emotional power is balanced. Subconscious alignment is the final confirmation that he is not just present, but dominant in her perception, not through intimidation, not through control, not through manipulation, but through unshakable presence, self-sufficiency, and integrity. At this point, he becomes the man she cannot control, cannot manipulate, and cannot ignore. Her desire is instinctive, her respect is unwavering. And every test, every subtle provocation, every pull and withdrawal has served a single purpose: to reveal who he really is, and confirm that he is, unequivocally, the man she needs him to be. This is the endgame of attraction, the culmination of every unconscious test. The final confirmation is simple in essence, but profound in effect. When he is whole without her, aligned in strength, and consistent in presence, she aligns with him, subconsciously, instinctively, permanently. Now you see it clearly. Every phase, every test, every subtle pull wasn't random. It wasn't manipulation. It wasn't malice. It was evolution. Her subconscious was gathering data, measuring your strength, cataloging your presence, and evaluating your consistency. And here's the truth most men never face. You will always be tested. Not occasionally, not sometimes. Every woman, consciously or unconsciously, does this to every man she invests in. The question is not if you will be tested, it's how you respond. Will you crumble under withdrawal, chase validation, bend to provocation, or break consistency? Or will you stand firm, maintain your frame, remain whole without her, and pass every test she throws, not through effort, not through manipulation, but simply by being the man you truly are? Because here's the ultimate paradox. The less you need her, the more she desires you. The more unshakable your presence, the more magnetic your energy. The stronger your boundaries, the deeper her respect. Strength is not a mask. It's not arrogance. It's not coldness. It's the unshakable core of who you are, and every interaction she has with you will reflect that truth. The tests are coming. The pull, the provocations, the subtle checks. They will arrive. The choice is yours. Fail and be controlled, or rise and become the man she cannot resist.